Howdy and welcome to Bamberger Ranch. My name is Aldo Leopold. I'm the director of the Texas A&M Natural Resources Institute, and we're going to continue our Leopold Live series here at Bamberger, continuing to talk about the 5 basic tools introduced by Aldo Leopold, the father of wildlife management. These 5 tools include cow, axe, plow, fire, and gun. And what we hope to do in the upcoming months is show you how those tools can be applied, but with very specific projects and objectives. And so with me is Dr. April Sampson. She's the executive director of Bamberger, and she's going to tell us a little bit about Bamberger and what we hope to cover in the series.
Great. Thank you so much, Roel. We're really excited to have you and your colleagues from the Natural Resources Institute back here at Selah Bamberger Ranch Preserve. And we're excited about continuing our journey into Leopold Live version 2. Like Roel said, we'll be providing more detail and more useful information regarding the 5 tools that Aldo Leopold championed. Here at Selah Bamberger Ranch Preserve, we're a 501c3 nonprofit organization, and our mission is landowner stewardship, outreach, and environmental education. So we have many Central Texas school children that come visit us every year for hands-on science-based environmental education lessons, and we also lead showcase tours and workshops for landowners interested in practicing restoration and good land stewardship. So we're very happy to be partnering with Natural Resources Institute, and we know that you'll benefit a lot from the information that we are going to be talking about during this new version of Leopold Live.
So let's go ahead and get started.
Great.
Welcome back to another episode of Leopold Live. Again, my name's Steve Fulton. I'm the ranch manager for the Bamberger Ranch Preserve. Today's topic is one that for a land manager or a land conservationist it's pretty important to talk about erosion and the techniques to prevent erosion, so erosion control. And we have implemented many techniques to keep our soil on the land where it can be productive versus it washing downstream, silting up our stock tanks or the lake or the stream. And you can also, anytime you have erosion, you can also get chemicals that may not be so healthy for your waterways, stuff like nitrates if there's too much fertilizer or too much feces from cattle or other livestock, which can cause algal blooms, and then you can have fish die-offs because of that. So, but it's very important to keep our soil on the land. The hill country has lost, and this is estimations, the hill country has lost around 22 inches to 2 foot of topsoil, all because of land use change that started happening in the 1800s, which was predominantly overgrazing. So for the most part, a lot of our erosion control here is pretty simple. Basically, we try to maintain a good vegetative cover of our soil, of our land. As long as we have this nice thick grass that helps bind that soil and helps to take away the force of that water as it moves across the surface, then you keep your erosion at a minimum. But in cases where, in pretty much any time we as humans do something to disturb the soil, we can cause erosion. So there's good erosion, or there's 2 types of erosion, I should say, not really good or bad. There's natural erosion. That's the reason why we have the hill country. Of course, that took eons to carve out these valleys. But man-made erosion and even natural erosion that we can curb, that we can minimize, is a good practice to do. So, other than just trying to keep a good vegetative cover of our land, we try to use all natural materials that we have on hand in plenty. As you might see behind me, there is a check dam that's been constructed in this arroyo. I'm pretty sure that's one of them I had a hand in helping with construction as a work project for a group of kids that came out. But This drainage, or this arroyo, is about a quarter of a mile long between the paved road, which is just up here, and the creek where it flows into the creek. And we have 15 of these rock constructed out of rock check dams. So again, the key to erosion control is just slowing down the water, giving that chance for that surface flow. If it has picked up any sediment or debris, giving a chance for that to settle out and accumulate and be a source of soil for your plants to grow. So these check dams are actually quite a bit bigger than what you're seeing here, but they have silted up over the last dozen or so years. They have silted up to where they're almost half covered with silt. So they are working very well. Now, construction of these there's an art to it and a bit of science too. You want to make sure that the lowest point of that dam is kind of in the middle, so a nice, I guess what do you call it, concave type of structure, and it's just loose stacked rock. It's not cemented together. You want the water to be able to filter through it. If it's just a light runoff event, you want the water to be able to filter through it, and as it filters through that stone, that sediment drops out. Or if it's a larger event, you want that water to, instead of going around the ends of your check dam, which can cause additional erosion into the banks of this arroyo, you want it to go over the top. Again, anything you can do to slow down water. This is just one structure that we built here. This is a project, kind of a long-standing project that Mr. Bamberger implemented, I don't know how many years ago, probably 50 years ago, and he called it the Project of 1,000 Dams. So here's 2 of them. I know there's 1,000 of them. I've counted them. But from here, I would like to take you to another site and show you some other techniques that we use to curb erosion. So if you don't have rocks available to construct your check dams, which is hard to imagine if you live in the hill country, but if you don't have rocks available, there's other things available. What I have behind me is a couple of hay bales. You can stack those just like the stone in the bottom of your arroyo. It's always handy to have a couple of stakes, not ribeyes. Those are nice too. But just a couple metal stakes, whether it's a couple pieces of rebar per hay bale. Whoa. Or a couple of T-posts. I'm not going to drive this in very far because I don't really need these here. This is just for demonstration. So something like that, you want to drive those into as far as you can into the soil just to anchor them there. And then they'll do the same thing. And as they degrade, as that hay degrades, it would just add to that soil profile at that spot. You'll get taller grasses growing, and again, help curb your erosion. All right, here we are at another site. This is the Madrone Lake, constructed here on the ranch in 1986. And anytime you have a large scale construction project like a stock tank, an earthen pond, or a lake in this fashion, or even a long stretch of road, you're going to have a lot of soil disturbance. So what can you do to minimize your erosion? Well, again, the best thing is try to get some vegetative cover on that as quickly as possible. Silt fences, even a cellulose covering, like you see sometimes in construction projects, whether it's a roll-on or a spray-on. Again, you want to stick with natural stuff that's going to be biodegradable. Try to stay away from the plastic things, like plastic netting, things that small critters can get caught up in and perish, and also just for the health of the environment overall. So what was done here at the lake when the construction was complete, this was all seeded to native grass, and the grass you see along the edge of the lake all the way around is switchgrass, a native grass, one that you should see at water's edge, like you see it right here. And I mean, the rule of thumb with grasses, there's as much as twice below ground, twice as much below ground as there is above ground. So if you're talking about a grass that's almost as tall as me, that's a lot of root structure. And the root structure is the key to binding that soil in place and keeping it from washing away. We have other shrubbery like buttonbush, which is just a little further to my left here. Again, another good riparian shrub plant that's great for stabilizing the embankments. On my right, we have some bald cypress that Mr. Bamberger has planted. And as far as bald cypress and switchgrass together in conjunction, they're as good as solid rock as far as the stream bank stability. So they have a very high stability rating, which means they're going to curb a lot of erosion, most of it that would happen. So again, you just want to, anytime you disturb the soil, you want to try to recover that as quickly as possible. Another big and continuing concern for us is when we get those large rainfall events. This lake does have a drawdown pipe or a constant level flow, so it makes it a constant level lake. So the lake, when it gets to a certain point, it's going to dump into a pipe that exits through the dam and keeps on going down the creek. But if we get a large rainfall event, that pipe cannot handle that amount of flow. So as any good engineer, Leroy Petrie built in a secondary escape for all that water, and that's a spillway. So a lot of your larger stock tanks will have a spillway. I've seen them constructed totally out of concrete with riprap and other things to, again, take away the energy from that water so it doesn't erode your soil. But even if it's constructed out of concrete, at some point the concrete's going to stop. And when the concrete stops, you're going to have an area there that's going to need some mitigation. For this, we chose to go with Leroy chose to go with an all earthen spillway, and very quickly, as quickly as he could, to get that again vegetated. And he chose to use coastal. Now this is back in 1986, so a non-native grass was used to recover that, to cover that soil. But coastal or Bermuda does a very good job of forming a mat, and that is key to areas that might be of high erosive environment. As that water comes over that spillway, it's moving at a pretty good clip. And if there's a tree trunk or a large bunch grass, that water's going to be split by that, and when it goes around, it's going to have this swirling effect, which can actually remove soil, make a hole behind that clump of grass or that tree. So it's very, very important that we keep that spillway free of trees and a nice mat grass covering. But continuing our discussion about erosion control, here we are on the hillside right next to our Arboretum trail. And there's not really an arroyo here like I showed you earlier. It's just more of a hill slope. And what we've been doing is doing some trimming, taking out some lower limbs, just opening up a little bit, making it a little more aesthetically pleasing, but also taking out some regrowth juniper. So all of that, basically, it can expose more soil. Anytime you're doing brush work, you can expose soil to erosion. So since we were doing the trimming already, we took that material that we had in hand, literally, and we stacked it perpendicular to the slope, and we went between trunks just to kind of hold it, keep it held in place in case we get a really big rain. But again, basically all this is doing is any water that comes sheeting down this hillside will come into contact with these, what we call windrows or windrow brush piles. It'll be slowed down. That sediment will settle out, and over the years it will accumulate quite a bit. And you'll have grasses growing up behind the brush berms, which will increase your ability to control the erosion. And then also these brush piles make great habitat for birds, small mammals, and as a seed source for that grass or other beneficial trees and shrubs, where they can grow up in there and be protected from the browsing or grazing of animals. Again, you can go in here and lay down either a spray cellulose after if you're doing a wholesale clearing of an area like this. You want to get that vegetation established as quick as possible. So once you get your clearing done of the brush, prep your seed bed, spread your seed, and then put either a spray on cellulose. That can be kind of expensive, but we go the route of using what we have on hand. You can cover it with hay, a layer of hay. It's better to use native grass hay, but hay will biodegrade. But just something to give that seed bed a covering, again, to protect it from a lot from animals, from birds and small mammals that will eat that seed, but also to keep it from washing away if you get a heavy rainfall event before that seed becomes established. So another good use for this material, if you have the ability to turn it into mulch, since we are right near one of our main walking trails for our groups of people that come out for our ecotourism, we use that mulch on these trails, and that's another form of erosion control that keeps the foot traffic from turning that trail into a long trough or a stream channel. What will happen over time if you don't do some remediation on your trail, maintenance on your trail, that trail will turn into a river of its own. And then that just increases the erosion and it makes it more difficult to recover that. So using that mulch to keep that foot traffic from really harming your trail system is a definite benefit. Again, and it's a native material, natural to here, and it does biodegrade.
So a few questions for you. The first one, what kinds of plants are best to stabilize the soil on my property?
Well, that's a it depends type of question. If you're just out in the pasture, just as many native grasses as you can get in your seed mix is great. Beneficial forbs as well. Two grasses that I always recommend for a seed mix because they do germinate readily. And that's what you want. You want something in your mix that will germinate quickly and go ahead and give you that binding to that soil, that exposed soil. And that's a cytosgrama and green springletop. Now, depending on the time of year, if you're doing that soil is exposed, if you're doing some work and you expose that soil to erosion, say in the late summer or the fall, I would wait till spring to put your native grass seed down or your forb mix. Some of your forbs can go in the fall, i.e. bluebonnets can go in the fall, but a lot of your grasses, it's best for wait for just before rain in the spring. But in the fall, as far as the grass, just as a cover crop to protect that soil, either cereal rye or just common rye that you can get at any feed store or hardware store, or probably even a tractor supply or something of that nature. So that rye, what it will do, it germinates very quickly. It will grow. It's a cover crop. As a cover crop, it grows quickly. It helps to protect that soil through the fall and winter months. And it's an annual. So it will reseed itself. At least the common rye will reseed itself. But as your perennial grasses that you put in your seed mix in the spring, as they germinate and start to take hold, then that ryegrass will be. There's too much competition for the ryegrass, and it'll die out. Now, if there's a second part. If you're in a riparian situation, some of those trees and plants that I pointed out earlier, like switchgrass or bushy bluestem, or along the creek, and just naturally we have a lot of chasmanthium, which is inland sea oats, or woodland oats, or creek oats. It goes by many names. So those grasses are great for stabilizing like stream banks or around your stock tanks or ponds. Bald cypress, pecan, buttonbush. There's a long list, but basically what's supposed to be there, and you can get it there as quickly as you can, you're doing a good job.
Are there certain types of soils that are more prone to erosion than others?
Exposed soils. That I was joking, but I wasn't joking. All soil can be eroded, depending on even the larger texture classes can experience erosion if it's exposed to a large rainfall event. But it's your finer soils, your silt and your clays that will wash away more readily.
And then one more, what information do I need to provide to my tax appraiser if I implement this practice on my property?
Just photographs are always, pictures worth 1,000 words. Photographs are always welcome. If you can't get photographs, which is kind of hard to imagine, but a diagram or even a short description of what you've done, how many hours of labor you have into it is always good. If you've purchased materials, receipts for those materials, and then keep track of that. I think it's every 10 years you have to augment another erosion control project. Initiate another erosion control project to maintain that erosion control requirement for the valuation.
All right, well that was pretty exciting. Thank you for joining our session of Leopold Live. Again, we'd like to thank all those speakers and those that participated with our session. Look for upcoming sessions over the course of the next year, and our hope is to cover these very specific topics that are of interest to landowners and natural resource managers.
That's right. And I'd like to thank once again the Natural Resources Institute for coming out here and helping us provide this valuable information. At Bamberger Ranch Preserve, we hope to have our programming, including our workshops and tours, back up and running by the fall, depending on how things go. So make sure to watch for both the Texas A&M Natural Resources Institute and Bamberger Ranch Preserve on your social media channels, and make sure to check in every once in a while and see what we're up to.